Hello, my name is Kathleen Carpenter, and this session is being recorded for the Warren County Educational Service Center, and we'll focus on analyzing the PARCC performance level descriptors for grades 6 through 8. This webinar is part of a series on the performance level descriptors, as well as session 1 of a series for middle school mathematics teachers for the 2013-14 school year. The first thing I would like to do is say that as you go through this session and you have questions, please feel free to keep track of them and send me a message to the email address on the screen, and I'll be happy to try to answer them for you. So we're going to get started today, but the first thing you need to do in order to get full benefit of this webinar is you will need familiarity with the Common Core state standards for mathematics. If you don't have those documents, you can go to corestandards.org and download the standards themselves. In addition, I'll also be referencing the PARCC assessment blueprints and evidence tables, and I'm actually going to click on that link to let you know what that looks like. So as the PARCC Assessment Consortium has been developing these new assessments tied to the Common Core, they've gone through a series of processes in kind of providing support documents. And the assessment blueprints and test specifications are a series of documents that help you understand exactly what items are going to look like and the content and the structure of the assessment. And it also tells you how many total number of tasks for any given assessment component and which standards are going to be measured and point values and so on. We will not be going through that one this afternoon, but I will be referencing it. So I want to show you, you need to scroll down on this screen and go past the language arts documents, and you'll see this rather lengthy list of mathematics evidence tables. And if you go down to the 6th grade, for example, the first 6th grade link is the end of year assessment evidence table, which we'll be looking at today, referencing today, as well as in the evidence tables for the performance-based assessment and the mid-year assessment. So those are two documents that would be important to have in order to discuss what we're going to look at today in this session. The other document then, which we'll be spending the bulk of our time on, is the actual performance level descriptors for grades 6 through 8. And you can click on the link at the bottom of the screen to find those performance level descriptors. If you do not have those in front of you, I really recommend that you hit pause on this recording and click on this link and download and print out that document. We're going to look at pieces from the document today, but you will definitely want to have a copy for yourself, because I'll make reference to some other parts that aren't going to be on the screen. The other thing to know is that they are rather lengthy. The one for 6th grade, for example, is 15 pages, so you'll want to take some time and have that in front of you as you go forward. So if you need to hit pause now, go ahead, and then you can join me for looking at the performance level descriptors. Okay, so as the PARCC Assessment Consortium has been developing their assessments, they have come to the point where they have created these performance level descriptors. And this document is an effort to help you see exactly what children will need to do to perform at different achievement levels. And we'll get into what those levels exactly are here in a moment, but the overarching organization of the performance level descriptors all fall under these different subclaims. And the first subclaim, subclaim A, anything you find under that subclaim will describe how students need to solve problems using the major content within each grade or course, as well as connecting that content to the standards for mathematical practice. And when we look at a specific example, you'll see what I mean by that. Now, what we're going to do then for this session is I'm going to take you through an overview of subclaim A for each grade level, 6, 7, and 8, so you can see the commonalities among the grade levels, as well as how things change from 6th through 8th grade. This is a snapshot of the first page of the 6th grade performance level descriptors. For subclaim A in 6th grade, you see a couple of things, and some of these will, let me give you a little brief overview before we jump into some of the specific content. In each of the subclaim areas, you will see descriptions under 4 performance levels. Students who perform at the moderate level, level 3, will actually quote-unquote pass the test, but they may or may not be ready for the next grade level. And so that's a distinction maybe that's different than what you're used to before with other testing. And so what I'm recommending to teachers is that you really try to take a look at, and let me put my highlighter on so I can highlight some things. You really try to look at shooting for this level 4 and 5. Because if you give children the opportunity to learn and demonstrate their understanding at that level, then you will have some children who actually will achieve at that level, of course. But then for those who may not get it, if you will, hopefully level 3 will be the residual learning. Now, I'll talk about how you can use those level 2 and 3 though as a starting point here in just a moment. So across all the subclaims, you're going to see this level 5 through 2. Level 1 is not described simply because that's really a student who is really functioning at a low level. So another thing to know is that on the left-hand column, you'll see these major topical headers. Multiplying and dividing with fractions then is a major content area for the 6th grade PARCC assessment. Underneath that then you will see reference to the standards. 6th grade number systems, standards 1 and 2. And what you'll notice, especially under the second box, is under the big topic of ratios, there's many 6th grade standards that address that topic. And that also helps you see what kind of tasks students will be given. They'll be given tasks that encompass many of these standards, and so they're going to be a lot richer than maybe they've seen in the past, as well as more rigorous. So I wanted to spend just a few minutes then. You'll see parallel kind of organization for every grade level and every subclaim for that matter, as far as the headers we've just looked at. But what I want to do is spend a few minutes with each of the grade levels under subclaim A and look at the content and what's happening. So as we look at this subclaim A, as I mentioned before, our major work in 6th grade then involves multiplying and dividing with fractions and ratios. Now, the pages that you do not see, but as you look at the document, are some other subclaim A areas which are equally important. So you have students also working with rational numbers, expressions and inequalities, and multiplying and dividing with fractions. That involves more of the, not just the computation part, but that's really the expression and equation part. So it's more of the multiplying and dividing with fractions as it relates to solving single-step equations, as it relates to looking at independent and dependent variables on a graph, so on and so forth. So that's an important thing of note in 6th grade, is that multiplying and dividing fractions actually appears twice. It appears at the beginning of subclaim A and it appears at the end. So what you want to do is take a look then within each of these rows of this table to see what makes things different. And I'm going to start with the ratios because there's a couple things in this that that are of note and that can help you as you look through all the subclaims. First of all, if you look at level 2, these are children who are not going to pass the test, but yet they're still going to be demonstrating some knowledge of ratios. And you'll see that they're going to solve mathematical problems involving ratio, unit rate, percent, and unit conversion. What changes then for a child who performs at a level 3 is that we're not just solving mathematical problems. We're solving mathematical and real-world problems. And you see then that stays the same for levels 4 and levels 5. Now, the second statement then here under ratios is worth noting because you see that for levels 2 and 3 it's the same, that the child is going to use a limited variety of representations and strategies to solve problems. Then as I get to the strong command, which is solid readiness for grade 7, I'm using a greater variety. And then of course when I get to that level 5, which is that distinguished command, and I try to give, you might think about that being the litmus test of those kind of, honors mathematics students, that students are not just using a variety of representations, they're using and connecting a variety of representations. So what you see here in the increase going from level 2 to level 5 is not just an increased number of representations, but then the culmination of not only using different representations, but being able to connect between and among them. So you see then that's the connection to the standards for mathematical practice, is that I'm not just learning more content, but I'm also learning more content and doing things with that content. Likewise, if you take a brief look at the first row involving multiplying and dividing with fractions, you'll see in level 2 I'm using fractions with common denominators, whereas in level 3 I'm using fractions with unlike denominators. And then in level 4 and 5 I move to a higher level of sophistication, just all kinds of division of fractions by fractions. In that, it's not just, the other thing to see here too is prompting embedded within the problem. And you'll see that a lot, that the scaffolding given to students who perform at a higher level decreases. So as I get to be a level 4 and level 5 student, the amount of scaffolding I am provided or prompting embedded within the problem decreases. So that gives you a snippet of what subclaim A looks like for 6th grade. Now let's look at